Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturning. I like the form of the classic vases, and I've been wanting to make one. And I like open segmented wood turning because, especially for a tall vase like this, I can actually construct this in two halves and therefore not have to do the whole hollowing business through this narrow neck up here. In this case, I put a solid segment in the middle where I was breaking the two. I'll have to work on how to position that in different varieties in future vases. But for now, let's make a open segmented vase. But meanwhile, don't forget your face shield.
To get started, I made segment rings for the top, bottom, and middle for this vase. I'm using walnut and cherry. Then, using a SegEasy template and a Stomper Pro, I started building the open segment rings. It's a simple process. 1. Place segments into the template. 2. Place the template on the Stomper. 3. Spread white glue on the tops of all segments. 4. Place the base with any previous segments on the Stomper post. And 5. Press down and align the segment layers. And finally 6. Weigh down the stack for clamping pressure. Then repeat for each layer. To lengthen the glue set time, I alternated between the base half and the top half. However, I'm showing them in sequence here. For the final layer on each, I wanted to use the lathe for more precise alignment, using the tailstock to hold the final solid ring. Now let's do it all again for the top half. The only difference is that the top has 3 solid rings to form the vase lip. Let's see just how fast I can glue these up. With the glue dry, I can start rough shaping the base half. At this point, I'm using a gouge to cut down the open segments. Open segments are vulnerable to splitting since they have no neighbors to help them out. I have to use moderately light strokes to avoid ripping the open segments. I'm cutting it down to the diameter of the solid rings at the top. They establish the final diameter. Then do about the same thing to the upper half. With the upper half still on the lathe, I'll start rough hollowing. Here I'm using a square carbide scraper. This interior work is noisy as the open segments bang against the tool. A higher speed helps even it out. When finished, I'm dressing the top ring with a sanding board to make sure it's flat. Then switch it out for the bottom half for the same treatment. I'll stop and mark with dividers the inner diameter from the top half, and rough hollow the base half pretty much the same as the top half. The difference is that hollowing half a vase is significantly easier than hollowing the whole vase. Segmenting enables dividing the task into sections. After rough hollowing, I'm switching to a round carbide cutter to radius the bottom of the vase and to take the inside of walls to their final dimension. I've also sanded it up through 320 grit. No one will ever be able to touch it and feel the inside, but I'll sand it anyway along with the top half when it's finished. Now I'm switching back to the top half since their diameters have to match. But here's where a lesson is learned. Never use MDF as a waste layer on a faceplate. It does not have enough strength through its layers. But life and turning goes on. I've mounted the top portion on what remains from the waste block. Since it's still MDF, I'm hoping it will last long enough to finish hollowing the top half. Fortunately, it does last, and I finished hollowing the top half. Now to glue the two halves together. Both surfaces have been dressed, and I'll use tape and mark how I want the halves to align. Then spread the glue, wipe off the inside edge, and press them together. Now to finish the exterior. I'm almost exclusively shear scraping here. With the open segments, I have to be careful. A normal cutting action would not have a bevel to ride and may split off the face grain. Since this is a finishing cut anyway, I can quit as soon as I have the curve that I'm after. Since the form is now glued together, it's difficult to assess wall thickness. Rather than reaching down through the neck with a measuring device, I've bent the end of a short piece of wire and push it down through the open space between segments. Then twist the wire to hook it on the inside of a segment and put my fingers against the outside. Then twist it back and withdraw it. The distance between my fingers and the hook is the wall thickness. Now to refine the inside of the neck. The form is hanging way out from the chuck. I don't have the same problem with my waist block as the top. This side is pine, not MDF. Even so, I'm mounting my steady rest. I'd rather put it on the solid neck, but it does not fit there. So I'll move it down to the solid middle segments. It will still do its job there. I'll start with a gouge and finish with a round carbide scraper. To finish, I've brushed on sanding sealer with a small artist's brush, including all the edges of the open segments. Then, after sanding, I used wipe-on poly, again sanding between the coats. Then I'm ready to part it off. Often I like to part off a project completely under power, but with the size of this vase, I'm worried whether I can catch it without some damage. So I'll cut it down to give me a good curve, then finish cutting with a back saw. Finally, I'll sand the bottom on the drill press. Et voila! My vase is finished. I like its shape. The cherry segments provide a subtle pattern. I had debated whether to use maple, which would have contrasted much more, but I like how the cherry blends. This vase will never hold water, but wood and water don't mix very well anyway. Please click the like button on this video and subscribe to both my website and YouTube channel. Always wear your face shield. Don't let a hunk of wood hit you in the face. Until next time, this is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns.